Alex Eala already did it once. 15 months ago, ranked 140th in the world, she walked onto the hard courts of Miami and stunned Iga Świątek in straight sets. That result shocked everyone, except, apparently, herself. It was written off as an anomaly at the time, a wild card catching lightning in a bottle. But now the story has circled back. At Wimbledon 2026, the two meet again in the third round, this time on grass, and this time with Świątek defending the crown she claimed in dominant fashion last summer. What makes this matchup so compelling is not just whether Eala can repeat what she did before, but the unsettling possibility that the defending champion might be the more vulnerable player stepping onto the court. To understand why that doesn't sound as absurd as it seems, you have to look at the contrasting paths both players have taken over the past 6 months. Because 2026 has pulled their careers in opposite directions, Świątek, who lifted the Venus Rosewater dish last July after dismantling Amanda Anisimova 6-0 in a one-sided final, looked untouchable at the time. The expectation was simple: she would keep collecting titles, keep reinforcing her dominance, and remain the benchmark everyone else chased. Instead, her season since then has been marked by a slow but noticeable erosion of that authority, leaving questions where there used to be certainty. She has 11 losses already and 0 titles. Her record against top 10 opponents this year reads 1 win and 5 defeats. She fell to Rybakina at the Australian Open, lost to Svitolina twice at Indian Wells and Rome, went down to Andreeva in Stuttgart, and retired against Kenin in Madrid. Kostyuk dismantled her in the 4th round of Roland Garros, 7-5, 6-1, on the clay that was supposed to be her sanctuary. Then, in her only grass preparation event at Bad Homburg, Emma Navarro knocked her out in 3 sets. That is the trajectory Świątek carries into this Wimbledon defense. Not a collapse, exactly, but something more unsettling. A steady inability to close out the biggest moments against elite opposition. Her opening 2 rounds at the All England Club have already told 2 different stories. Against Taylor Townsend in the first round, she had to fight back to win 6-1, 2-6, 6-3, a match that left her visibly emotional. In her post-match press conference, she admitted the season had been weighing heavily on her, acknowledging that things had not been going as expected. In the second round, she looked more composed in a 6-1, 6-3 win, but it didn't feel like a full rediscovery of dominance, more a reminder that scorelines alone don't always reflect the struggle underneath. Now turn to Eala. Her 2026 has been a very different story. She opened the grass season in Birmingham as the top seed and won the title, coming back from a set down in the final against Nikola Bardonkova, her first grass court championship. She followed that by heading to Berlin for a WTA 500 event and producing something even more striking. She beat Donna Vekic in the first round, then stunned Elena Rybakina, the world number 2, in straight sets, 7-5, 6-4, after recovering from a 4-1 deficit in the opening set. Then she beat Alina Svitolina, another top 10 player, 6-3, 6-4 to reach the semifinals. 3 consecutive wins over elite opposition on grass. Tracy Austin, watching live for Tennis Channel, offered a succinct explanation for why Eala looks so natural on the surface. She gets down low, her ball stays flat through the court, her left-handed serve skids and stays low, and her return position is aggressive because she has such good timing and short takebacks. All of those qualities are perfectly suited to grass, where the ball stays low and rewards players who take it early rather than waiting for it to bounce up into their strike zone. Eala is not without recent setbacks. She lost to Iva Jovic 6-2, 6-2 at Queen's Club, a result that looked like the kind of correction that follows a breakout week. She also lost in the first round at Bad Homburg, but her Wimbledon run has been a different animal entirely. She demolished Rana Akua-Stoiber 6-1, 6-2 in the first round, hitting 22 winners and winning 20 of her first serve return points. Then she faced Maya Joint, the Australian who had beaten Serena Williams in the first round, and despite losing the opening set 3-6, Eala found another gear entirely. She took the second set 6-2 and then produced something remarkable in the decider, a 6-0 final set. Breaking Joint's serve repeatedly while committing almost nothing in unforced errors. That comeback scoreline, 3-6, 6-2, 6-0, says everything about Eala's current competitive mindset. She is not just playing well on grass. She is learning how to take control of matches even when they start slipping away. What happens when these two actually step onto the court together? The head-to-head sits at 1 apiece. Eala won in Miami on hard court. Świątek won in Madrid on clay. They have never played on grass. That distinction matters enormously because grass is the surface that most dramatically reshapes how both players operate. Świątek's greatest weapon has always been her topspin forehand, the shot that jumps and kicks on clay, pushing opponents back and making them feel like they're hitting uphill. On grass, that kick is reduced. The ball stays lower, the bounce is skiddier, and time to set up is shorter. Świątek has adapted. Her Wimbledon title last year proved that, but that adaptation comes with trade-offs. She has to flatten her ball more than she naturally prefers, and she leans more heavily on her serve in tight moments. In 2026, that serve has not been fully reliable. Her first serve percentage has hovered around 63% across the season, and in 3-set matches she has repeatedly been the player who tightens under pressure. 6 of her 11 losses have come in deciding sets or in matches where she held a lead and failed to close. That pattern matters here, because if Eala drags her into deep waters, especially a third set, the psychological balance shifts. Eala's game, by contrast, is amplified on grass. She hits flat, takes the ball early, and redirects pace rather than manufacturing heavy spin. On a surface where the ball stays low and skids through, those traits become weapons rather than neutral tendencies. Her left-handed serve is especially dangerous here, curling into the body of right-handed returners before staying low off the bounce, making aggressive returns harder to execute cleanly. Świątek's return game, arguably the best in women's tennis on clay and hard courts, still presents a major challenge, but grass compresses reaction time and reduces the margin for extended construction. Everything becomes faster, more direct, and more dependent on first-strike tennis that will have less time to set up against that delivery. And Eala has shown this grass season that she can go to the net effectively. She mixed in serve and volley combinations against joint and used her forward movement to pressure Svitolina in Berlin. Against a player like Świątek, who prefers her opponents planted at the baseline exchanging heavy ground strokes, that net presence could be disruptive. But here is where honesty demands balance. Świątek is still the defending Wimbledon champion. She is still ranked world number 3. She has won 6 Grand Slam titles. She has played on the biggest stages in the sport and won matches under pressure that Eala has simply not experienced yet. Eala's deepest Grand Slam run remains the second round of the 2025 US Open. This Wimbledon third round is already new territory for her at a major, and there is no precedent for how she handles the psychological weight of facing a defending champion on a show court at the All England Club, with an enormous Filipino diaspora crowd behind her and a global audience watching a storyline that practically writes itself. Pressure does strange things in tennis. It can sharpen focus, or it can make timing feel slightly off, like the hands belong to someone else, and Świątek's record in big matches, even in a down year, cannot be dismissed. When Kostuk beat her at Roland Garros, the analysis focused on her body language and mounting errors, but she had still beaten Osaka and Pegula in earlier rounds to reach the 4th round. When she lost to Svitolina at the Italian Open semifinals, she had put together 4 convincing wins to get there, including a 6-1, 6-2 demolition of Pegula in the quarters. The inconsistency that has defined her 2026 cuts both ways. She is capable of looking like the best player in the world for 2 or 3 rounds, and then suddenly becoming someone who cannot find the court with her forehand because it allows the Polish player to dictate the rally length. The second thing to watch is Sweet's forehand depth in the first few games. When she is playing well on grass, her forehand lands consistently within 2 feet of the baseline, keeping her opponent pinned. When she is struggling, those forehands start landing in the middle of the service box, giving the returner time to step in. Against a player like Eala, who lives on early ball striking, that difference of 3 or 4 feet in landing zone is the difference between controlling the rally and handing it over. The third factor is serving under pressure. Eala's serve has improved this year. She has been clocked at 105 miles per hour, but it remains the weakest part of her game relative to the level of the rest of her tennis. In Berlin, she got away with it because her return game was so dominant that she could afford to lose serve occasionally and break right back. Against Świątek, that margin for error is thinner. Świątek may not be serving at her peak this year, but she is still capable of hitting aces when she needs them. Eala has to hold serve at a high rate to stay in the match. If she gets broken early and falls behind by a set, the question becomes whether she can produce another comeback like the one against Joint or whether doing it against Świątek is a fundamentally different ask. Here is my honest assessment. It can win this match. That is not a feel-good statement or an attempt to manufacture drama. Which version shows up against a genuinely unpredictable opponent will decide everything in the opening 15 minutes of this match. There are a few specific things to watch for that will determine the shape of it early. The first is Eala's return position. In Miami, she stood several feet inside the baseline to attack Świątek's second serve, cutting off the angle and stealing time. If she does that again on grass, where the ball already comes through faster and lower, it signals real confidence in her timing and hand speed. If she retreats behind the baseline, it's a sign the occasion is pulling her toward caution. And caution against Świątek is usually a losing trade, because it hands her control of rally length and structure. The second thing to watch is Świątek's forehand depth in the opening games. When she's comfortable on grass, that forehand lands consistently within 2 feet of the baseline, pinning opponents deep and preventing any forward movement. When she's off, those same forehands drift into the middle of the service box, and suddenly the court opens up. Against a player like Eala, who thrives on early contact and taking the ball on the rise, that difference of 3 or 4 feet in depth is the difference between dominance and vulnerability. The third factor is serving under pressure. Eala's serve has improved this year. She's been clocked at 105 miles per hour, but it is still the most exposed part of her game at this level. In Berlin, she could afford it because her return game was so dominant she could break straight back. Against Świątek, that safety net is thinner. Even in a down-serving year, Świątek is still capable of producing free points when she needs them. Eala cannot afford extended dips in her service games if she wants to stay leveled. If she gets broken early and drops a set, the question becomes whether she can repeat the kind of comeback she produced against Joint, or whether doing it against Świątek is an entirely different psychological equation. Here is the honest assessment. Eala can win this match. That is not a narrative flourish or an attempt to force drama. It is grounded in specific observable evidence. She has beaten Świątek before. She is playing her best tennis on her best surface of the moment, while Świątek is navigating her most inconsistent stretch in the last 3 years. Grass reduces Świątek's topspin advantage and amplifies Eala's flat, early timing game. The left-handed serve is a genuine tactical problem on this surface. And Eala's form over the past 3 weeks, a title in Birmingham, 3 top 10 wins in Berlin, and 2 convincing victories at Wimbledon, including a third-set bagel, represents the strongest stretch of results she has produced in her career. But can and will are different words. Świątek has championship-level experience that Eala simply does not. She knows what it feels like to close out a set with millions watching, to manage the emotional spikes of a Grand Slam match, and to recover momentum when a set starts slipping away. That kind of internal calibration is not something you can simulate in advance. It is built through years of being in those positions. And Wimbledon is still her house in a very real sense. She lifted the trophy here just 12 months ago, and on this court, muscle memory and confidence tend to return quickly. What you expect, then, is a competitive first set decided by 1 or 2 breaks, not a blowout in either direction. Eala's return game will create early pressure, particularly on Świątek's second serve, but Świątek's ability to elevate her level mid-set, finding a gear that often isn't visible in earlier rounds, should keep her within reach even when she's under strain. If Eala takes the first set, the match opens into genuine uncertainty, because Świątek's record in deciding sets this year gives the Filipina a real pathway. If Świątek takes the first set, Eala's task becomes significantly harder, because the defending champion tends to grow in authority once she is ahead on the scoreboard. The percentage play says Świątek wins this match. She is the higher-ranked player, the defending champion, and the more experienced competitor on the sport's biggest stages. But the percentage play also said she would beat Kostyuk at Roland Garros. It said she would beat Navarro at Bad Homburg. It said she would not lose to Linette in the second round of Miami. This has been a year in which Świątek has lost to players she would have comfortably handled 12 months ago, and Eala is not one of those players. Eala is the player who already knows she can beat Świątek, because she has done it before. And she has done it not by catching her on an off day, but by tactically overwhelming her with pace, timing, and an unwillingness to play on Świątek's terms. I think this match goes 3 sets. I think each player will take one set convincingly. And I think the outcome will be decided not by talent, not by rank,